Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cyrus Webb Presents here on Amazon Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Also, want to welcome those tuning in on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter today. We're simulcasting this conversation. We have a very special guest that's joining us. We're excited to welcome back international best-selling author Tess Gerritsen to our broadcast. I was saying to Tess, it was literally 2 years ago. Had a chance to last speak with Tess when she was introducing us to the characters in this book, Choose Me, one of my favorites, I have to say, Tess. If you have not gotten it, it is in our Amazon carousel, so make sure you guys do check it out. But her brand new book that has everyone talking is this one. It's called The Spy Coast. We're going to talk to Tess not only about the new characters she's been able to give us, Maggie Bird, the main character, what it was like for her to literally get inside her head and tell her story, and also let you guys know how to stay connected with Tess and her busy schedule. But Tess, thank you again for the time. Really appreciate it.
It's good to see you again. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much. I have to say, Tess, you have been so gracious with our Conversations family on the radio show here in Mississippi, as well as our Amazon Live over the years. So I definitely want to say a personal thank you for your support. But you have fans literally around the world, Tess, and they know you, as we were talking about, for different books. What has it been like for you this year to kind of sit with that, the response you've gotten from around the world to your writing?
Well, I write because I love it. I write because it's a pleasure to write and tell these stories. And it's always a surprise to me that people are actually reading it. You sit at your desk, you have these voices in your head, you tell their stories, and you don't know when you send it out, is anybody going to like this? So it's wonderful to find out that there are readers who are connecting to my new character, Maggie Bird, who is different from any other character I've written.
She really is. And to go to what you just said, though, Tess, it's an interesting connection. I literally just thought about as you were saying that your characters have a way of being able to trust their instincts, to trust their gut. Do you think that's one of the things that served you so well as a storyteller, to be able to do just that?
I think writing is a really instinctive thing. I'm not going by any rules. I don't write. I don't do a synopsis. I don't do an outline. I just get started. And I follow my character's instincts. And I think my natural instinct is I go for conflict. I'm always looking for the conflict on the page. And I don't mean big conflict like gun battles. I mean things that are not quite right. I love the micro tension of just being a little off balance. So I try to put my characters through that, and that's the instinct that I've always had, and I think it keeps the pace going.
Love that. Manswell Peterson's joining us on Facebook. He says hello to you as well. Tess, Manswell, thank you for watching it over there on Facebook. And the comment section, guys, is open on all the platforms. So feel free to say hello. If you guys have a question for Tess, make sure you guys put it in the comment section as well. And to that point about Maggie, I love the fact that with Maggie, once again, you give us a first-person narrative, Tess. But Maggie is one of these characters that definitely has to deal with conflict. But also there is a thread in we see with Maggie in The Spy Coast with other books, and that is having to deal with the past. The past is not as far behind as we may have liked. So I'm curious, how did Maggie Bird come to you?
Well, Maggie Bird is a kind of a sad character. And she first came to me in her voice. She said, "I'm not the woman I used to be." And I thought, okay, tell me more, Maggie. And there's a lot you can tell by a character by the way their voice sounds to you in your head. I knew she was older. I knew she was haunted. I knew she was pretty well educated because of her vocabulary. And I got the feeling that something terrible had happened not that long ago. So that's where the character started. But I also knew she was a retired spy. And the reason I chose a retired spy is because I live in a little town in Maine that has a lot of them. We have a lot of retired spies up here. And I wondered what their lives were like now that they've left the agency, that they're in a calm, safe little town in Maine. What do they get together for cocktail parties? Do they have book groups? Do they talk about their past lives? That was where Maggie came from. She's one of these people that I probably see in the grocery store.
Interesting. Hey, look, we may all see them, right, Tess? And I think that, again, is why this book is so fascinating, because Maggie is dealing with a conflict, we're able to find out, and then she's able to rally these individuals together, right? And I love the fact that there is this great ensemble you've kind of given, even though it is Maggie's voice that we hear, we do get a chance to see these other characters. So what about them? Did you, for yourself, when you were kind of developing Maggie or getting to know her, maybe, did you see her with these individuals who could could kind of understand the world that she comes from. So.
Yeah, well, she has this group of drinking buddies. They're all 5 retired spies.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw as I was developing them was that they did take on their own characters. I mean, there's one guy who's got a shaved head and always wears leather jackets and looks kind of scary.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the retired history professor who's the kind of man that I would fall in love with. And,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and then there's the married couple who are, they're just like the comic relief because the husband's a crack chef in the kitchen. So I love seeing how they get together and they bring their own interests, their own talents to this group. Whether it is Ingrid, who's a master at being able to pull secrets out of people, or whether it's Ben, who's kind of the heavy, or whether it's Declan, who has a long historical, he has the history behind him where he can look at a situation and know what happened before.
Yeah. And I love the fact that even though as they come together, and I'll talk around this test, they're able to come together in this book, they find themselves in interesting lanes, right? Because there is this thing that happens in the book, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but this situation that Maggie kind of is having to deal with literally at her front door, that there is, of course, there is the quote unquote good guy or good lady that that is there trying to also being able to figure things out. And it's interesting seeing the dynamics of that. So how much fun was that for you, Tess, to be able to have these individuals like Maggie who were trying to be able to, the Martinis Club, trying to be able to figure the situation out, but also having this other, quote unquote, good guy, good group trying to do the same thing.
Well, that was the real fun of this particular book. So we can just say the thing that happens is a dead body shows up on Maggie's driveway. And she interprets it as being, a bad omen from her past, and she soon finds out that somebody's trying to kill her. So you have a dead body in your driveway in a little town in Maine. Who's going to respond? It's going to be the local cop. And here is where I bring in my other character that I love, and her name is Joanna Thibodeau, or Joe for short. She's the acting police chief. She's only in her 30s. She finds a dead body on this driveway of a 60-something-year-old woman who happens to be a chicken farmer. That's Maggie's new job. She's a chicken farmer. And Joe was surprised that this woman is so calm. If you found a murdered body in your driveway, you'd be a little shaken. But Maggie is very cold-bloodedly calm, and she thinks, this woman is not what I expected. And then she notices there's a surveillance camera over the porch, and she asks Maggie if she can take a look at the video. And Maggie reluctantly opens up her computer screen, and Joe is shocked. She thought she would see like a little ring camera thing there. There's like a multi-channel surveillance system there. And so now Joe's thinking, who is this woman, this 60-year-old woman with 12 cameras and acting remarkably calm about a murdered body. So that conflict between the local policewoman who's in her 30s and the Martini Club who are in their 60s and 70s was the fun part, this generational conflict. You know how young people, they kind of overlook old people because we're over the hill. Or if you have silver hair, nobody pays attention to you anymore. Well, these spies have discovered that that's a perfect disguise.
Yes. And I love that dynamic for a couple of reasons. One, because I'm such a big nerd, Tess, as you know. Hello to you, Miss Queenie. She's joining us on Facebook. She says hello as well. But I love the fact there's always more than meets the eye. And I think that goes for Joe, too. I think as we get to know Joe, too, that Joe may not be as green as some people may think about with her or inexperienced, right? But also looking at people like Maggie and, and their group, and thinking, maybe we shouldn't underestimate, what individuals are capable of doing. It's a great dance you're able to do with them. And I want to say hello to you guys joining us on the Amazon side. I'm not ignoring you guys. I do want to say for those who are just tuning in, you all are watching Cyrus Webb Presents. I'm so excited to welcome back international best-selling author Tess Gerritsen to our broadcast. We're having a great conversation already about her newest book called The Spy Coast. You guys can see it there. But you guys joining us on the Amazon side, if you look either in this corner or down below, you will see the book, both the paperback as I have here, as well as the Kindle edition. You can be able to get either one of those. Also, you will see this book, one of my favorites. The last time I spoke with Tess about Choose Me, you'll see it in the carousel as well. So make sure you guys pick that up as well. I want to talk about I thought it was interesting what you mentioned, Tess, about what you don't do, right, when it comes to writing a new book. So I was curious, once you met Maggie, did you know automatically she was the beginning of something new for you when it comes to not just this book, but more?
I knew that I wanted to stick with her for a while. That's all I knew,
Okay,
because she
gotcha.
was fun. She was interesting. And she has a kind of a dry sense of humor,
Hmm.
a little bit sarcastic. But I wanted to know what was in her past that had so destroyed her. And
Hmm.
that was where the story, it kind of goes back into the past,
Yeah,
into her love affair. The last mission she was on as an agency employee went really badly wrong, and it drove her out of the profession. And that's why she's found peace in this little town. She's trying to find peace, and she's also trying to escape maybe some bad guys who might be looking for her. So I just knew that she was multi-layered, that she had talents, that she is a 60-year-old woman you don't want to underestimate,
yeah,
because if she needed to be, she could be dangerous. The other thing about this book is, yeah, it's a spy book, but I didn't want it to be a James Bond shoot 'em up. I
right.
wanted to feel like you were discovering things and you were living in a room full of mirrors. And it was, as somebody said, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion, that you will find
Mhm.
out more and more about what makes Maggie Maggie by the end of the story.
I think that is so true. And I think too, the other thing that I love about this book is it is written in the first person narrative, as I mentioned earlier. Tess, is that it's not new to you, but was it because she is a different type of character? Did it feel different for you though? And being able to kind of get into Maggie's mind and to see the world as she did.
Well, that's the way she came to me, as first person. It's,
Okay.
once she starts talking, it's like, okay, I'm just going to take dictation and let
Right.
you stay in first person. I mean, it was something that I thought about, and I
Mhm.
know I had a discussion with my editor. Is it okay, because the other characters are not in first person? Is it okay if
Right.
I stay in her head? And I think people liked being in her head
Hmm.
because of the way she saw the world, and the way she saw, I guess, the real feelings of sadness had to be told in the first person.
Yeah, love that. There's an interesting thing that came across, and I could have this completely wrong, but us readers, we read our own things into these books, Tess. But there almost seemed to be with Maggie and the club this feeling of still showing they have worth and value.
Yes.
And I thought about that for the reader, for myself, even that no one likes to think that they don't belong, that they don't there's no place for them.
Mhm.
Was a part of that for them as well, or was that something that maybe just readers may see in the way that they're able to engage with each other and with the plot?
Oh, it's absolutely part of it.
Okay.
I'm 70 years old now, and I feel
Mhm.
sometimes like, young people don't pay attention. And that's true, I think, especially in the United States, because look at the movies coming out of Hollywood. They're all young people. They
Yeah.
don't pay attention to people who are over 50 or 60, and actors can't find jobs at a
Mm.
certain point in their lives.
Mhm.
Um, these people are still smart. They still have what it takes to be a spy. It's just
Right.
that, they've retired, or they're pushed out, or they're physically maybe not as spry as they used to be. So the big theme of this is that you're never too old to have an adventure. And
Yeah.
I hope everybody remembers that as they get older, is, yeah, there's always something. You hope there's always something to look forward to, or something that will challenge you. That's important, to always have challenges.
Yeah, such a great thing. And I love the fact I want to go back to what I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation because I think it ties in with Maggie, but also with yourself, Tess, and that is about being willing to take the risk. And as you said, you and I were talking before we went live here. When I first mentioned that you were coming on, and I was mentioning you had a new book, one of the comments I got is it another Resilient Isles? And I was like, no, it's not. It's not Resilient Isles. You'll enjoy it, but it's not that. I want to talk about that for you because you are continuing to have readers who, at this point, if they just hear you have a new book coming out, Tess, honestly, you may not admit this, but if people hear Tess has a new book coming out, they're going to get it. I was excited about this book even before I was pitched this conversation with you today. So, what has that been like for you in your career to have gotten to a place where you are appreciated just for being a talented storyteller.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I hope it's true. I've written 13 Rizzoli Niles books, and
Mhm.
I love those books, but I can't keep doing the same book over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's one reason I think I've lasted in this industry as long as I have. I mean, psychologically, it's
Yeah.
because I've given myself permission to step out of the box every so often and do something completely different. Maybe nobody wants that weird book, but I want to write that weird book. So
Yeah.
I've written, historicals. I've written a ghost story. I wrote that book with Gary Braver, which was
Mhm.
a sort of a sexy Me Too story. And now
Mhm.
I've written a spy story. And those were never expected. They were always ones where I turn them in, and I'm sure my editor would say, "What's this? What do we do with it?" Because it's not what everybody's expecting.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, it's a risk whenever you step out of the box and do something unusual like that. There's always a risk that people will turn up their noses at you and just say, "No, I only want Rizzoli and Dials."
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I find that with this book, I'm picking up a lot of readers I never had before, new
Yes.
readers,
Yes.
older readers, and a lot of men seem to be interested in this particular book because they
Mhm.
like the spy genre. So, it was a risk, but it was one that I felt I had to take because I'm getting older. When am I going to write the books that I want to write?
Yeah, I love that. Mansell says definitely picked up a new fan and reader. And you and I were talking about that great review. If you guys have not read it, the Associated Press has a great review of Tess's new book in it. You have to read that. And it picks up on so many great points that I could definitely concur with. But one of the things that they say that I felt with every book I've read of yours, Tess, is that you draw us in from the very beginning. I mean, you really know how to do that. Even though the situations may be different, you make us want to know what's happening, what's going to happen, and where these characters will end. Okay, I do want to ask you this question, and then we're going to remind our audience how they can be to get the new book. For is it difficult for you because you mentioned how Maggie came to you? Is that difficult for you to shut them off?
Sometimes it is, and when I finish a book, that's the hardest because I have to,
Mm,
if I'm not going to be using them again, that they're
yeah,
still in my head. Luckily, with Maggie Bird, I don't have to shut her off because I'm writing a
yeah,
sequel to it. Yeah, so
okay.
she gets to stay with me. But
Hmm.
so I wrote this book called The Surgeon years and years ago, and there was a serial killer in that book called Warren. And at the end of the book, he was still alive. He was in jail, but he was still alive. And he wouldn't leave me alone. I just kept hearing
Mm,
his voice. And that's why I ended up writing the sequel, The Apprentice. And that's how the Rizzoli and Isles series was launched, because the serial killer wouldn't leave me alone. And I had to
mhm,
write a second book. So yeah, when characters don't leave you, it's either a sign that they're not finished with you, or it's a
mhm.
sign that um, I mean, that maybe there is a sequel or maybe a series involved.
Love that. Love that. Well, we're excited to see where Maggie and the Martinez Club go next. In the meantime, though, you guys have to pick up the Spy Coast. You guys can see it there. Make sure you guys do get it here on Amazon. You can get, again, the paperback as I have here, or the Kindle edition. Also, as I mentioned in the carousel, you'll see Choose Me, the book that Tess and I both mentioned there. All great books. And then you will go through, as Mansell like to say, you'll go down the rabbit holes. There's a lot of great books by Tess that you could definitely pick up. Tess, thank you again. This is such an honor to have you back on with us. How can our viewers stay connected with you?
Well, they can go to my website, tessgerritsen.com. I'm also on Facebook, and I am on X at Tess Gerritsen.
There you go. Well, Tess, again, congratulations to you on the Spy Coast, and looking forward to our next conversation together.
Good. Thank you.
All right. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Cyrus Webb Presents. Until next time, I'm Cyrus Webb saying thank you so much for being with us. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.